to our kids. They might not be knocking on our doors in the schools and talking to children, right? But they have the capacity to be able to actually investigate online what happened, right? And being able to catch perpetrators, right? Because I can abuse you not by physical contact, but through the internet. I can take advantage of you through the internet, right? And these are happening on a daily basis, right? And you see them. But you actually find that because the police, because government, because civil society, because we as a society don't fully understand the possibilities, we turn the blind eye. And oftentimes it is the victim that will be blamed for being stupid or being ignorant, right? But this is a problem. We need to take those things seriously, but that cannot be done by operators. That has to be done through having debates like this, but also being able to understand the problems, breaking the problems down into the different aspects. Who can solve what, and really tackling them. And some of these also have to be laws and training that has to be done. Hope that helps answer your question.
Let me add to that on the other part, which is the privacy issue. Right to privacy is a consumer right. If you give them your data or they collect data from you, and an enterprise or an ISP is found wanting leaking that data or information, you can lodge a complaint with the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. It is your right. It needs to be protected. If it is not protected, the government has established a whole office to make sure that your rights are protected. So if you face any of it, it could be your banking details, it could be your health, it could be with the ISP, as he rightly said. I mean, Gambia, and I'm happy that this office, this room is full of young people. When we chat, we want to show people that we know. And I'll be like, I work at a bank. I've seen Mr. Bensouda's bank account. He is this rich. You are intruding into his privacy. And he is protected by the Consumer Protection Act. If any of you is faced with it, just come to the commission. We will address it as required. Thank you.
Next question. Yes, let's have the gentleman there.
Yeah, good afternoon, the panelists, Mr. Bensouda and Mr. Cisse. I'm really happy to have two of you on board. Well, my question will go to Mr. Bensouda with regard to the NBN project of the GAMTEL. I don't know whether you people, the ISP have ever tried negotiating with GAMTEL or with the central government to kind of retail business the NBN project. As you said, if GAMTEL want to be in the business, competing with you, and at the same time being a government entity, how much productive is GAMTEL? You mentioned it in your talk that, for example, you have had clients that leave the GAMTEL fiber joining you, for example. And I have seen it in other areas also, not your company, but joining another ISP provider from a GAMTEL fiber. I myself have seen that. So what is that telling me is that, how much efficient is the GAMTEL fiber? If that is happening, people leaving, customers leaving the GAMTEL fiber, joining another competition, which one is not even a fiber, and they feel more satisfied with that, then when is GAMTEL going to generate the loan they took in order to pay it back? This is really alarming when when I have seen it, as you said, I have seen it, and then you also mentioned it happened. So it's going to be a problem. So, my interest here is the ISP providers really engage the government or GAMTEL to retail business the NBN, which is a nationwide fiber layout, in order to improve or to generate the income that is being taken from a loan. Thank you.
Essentially, access.
So the short answer is yes. On multiple occasions, it's come up where when the restriction was placed that we could not roll out fiber, proposals were said, look, allow us to wholesale that to us and we operate it. But obviously, you put now GAMTEL in a rock and a hard place, because obviously Gamtel still wants to participate in the retail sector, right? But ultimately as well is that there's a cost to capital. There's a cost to investment. The fundamental problem with the NBN, as I see it, is that it is not worth the amount of money paid. That is the fact. And one way or the other, right, because the loan was taken by the Gambia government on behalf of the taxpayer, we have to pay for it. But the simple reality is, I don't think that it is possible to get a return on investment on that infrastructure. From what I've seen, I don't see how, right? So ultimately, in other words, what's going to happen is at some point, that infrastructure is going to fall apart because it's old, right? And then we forget about it. Just like every other government project in the sector, in any sector. And that is why he said government has no business in private domain. And that is the fundamental problem. And I think ultimately as Gambians, we need to have those conversations. You see, during independence, it was a different time. It was a small population, it was relatively uneducated, right? And government felt that it had to create industry. So it invested in, it took over NAWEC, it took over Gamtel, etc., etc. But these were private sector companies owned by Gamtel, and the idea was to eventually privatize them. And before, in 1994, before the coup, privatization has started. NAWEC, at the time GUC, was already privatized, right? Gamtel was on its way to being privatized. So were all the other government parastatals. What happened is that when Yahya Jammeh came back, he reversed that. And in fact, he went to court, and the people that bought NAWEC, now NAWEC, won a huge settlement that was paid through the ECOWAS courts for Gambia because he illegally took it from them. But obviously, a lot of you would be young by then to remember. But these were real problems. But the idea was for government to exit because fundamentally, government cannot do it. It's not possible because, and consistently, not only look at studies, look at anywhere in the world. That is why capitalism is so much more efficient than communism. Even the Chinese have abandoned capitalism, the formal communism, and are moving to a form of socialism that is more balanced, right? Even Russia has, the inventors of communism have moved away from it. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable, right? So we find ourselves in this same kind of predicament. We need to let go. Government has to exit. We need to cut our, if you ask me, my opinion, you cut your losses with NBN. It is 10 years old anyway. It is almost near expiring. And you move out, but move away with a new thinking, which is that government exit and allows private sector. If you allow private sector participation in the NBN now, you might be able to recover some of the losses. But the clock is ticking, right? If you don't do it, eventually it rots and we forget about it, right? Because technology moves on, right? Exactly. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Another point you said, sorry, you mentioned was that, for example, the ECO one, you guys don't have like any contract signed with Gamtel in case there's a fall down or fiber and so that Gamtel have to go and repair the fiber. You don't have any written contract with them that if this thing happen, I believe you are paying them for that service for the ECO one. So there should be a contract whereby the number of hours you lose, you know that breakdown, they either pay you back or they compensate in another way.
I agree. But again now, therein always lies the problem, right? Because if you go to the regulator and press, they will say, we've advised government, right? And they're right. They are getting their budget from government. So in other words, the fundamental problem here is that you have a conflict of interest, right? You know, the consumer protector, Bahuga just mentioned it, he said, we advise government, right? But at the heart of the matter is that there is a conflict of interest. And it's very complicated. On the one hand, you own enterprise, right, that are inefficient, right, that you are not willing to let go, right? On the other hand, you are putting pressure, taxing also on that same industry in order to maintain the government apparatus. So it's a multifaceted conflict of interest. But unless we are able to have this conversation and break it away And we are now finding that it's impacting us. Because in 1980 something, the reason that led to the privatization project by World Bank was the same thing that is happening now. We woke up one day and all the government parastatals failed, one by one. Utility failed, Gamtel failed, they all failed. World Bank stepped in, they came to Gambia, they flew in on a mission. And they said, by force, you must privatize everything. And then they put in place a privatization program. It was painful, people started shouting, but it had to be done. Right? And like our late former vice president used to say, right? May God rest his, Allah rest his soul. You cannot make omelette and you don't break egg.
Thank you. Thank you, Siri. We're going to take one question because we have a lot of questions, but we're going to take one because CD and Babukar have other panels that they need to be in. So I'm going to, Joseph, yes, give it to the guy with the blue long sleeve. Joseph.
Okay, my question is for, how to call him, Babukar. My question is in regards to prices. You mentioned about that you don't want to interfere in terms of dictating what prices this service provider will offer. But I think you should not sit and say that you're not going to dictate. You should do something about it because your mandate is to protect consumers. And you protecting consumers means that you need to ensure that whatever prices is being given to the consumer is prices that are justifiable. So that being the case, like you were talking of, that there's no study being done to look at the cost, the cost that this service provider will need to incur for them to provide these services. So you saying that there's no study being done, I think since your mandate is to protect consumers and this is in the interest of the consumers, I think you should come up with initiative that will allow you to study this cost and this cost, and then you look at them, compare them against the prices, just to ensure that the prices are justifiable. And I mean, if the prices are not justifiable, then I think you should then take action. Because if you say that you will allow competition to dictate the price, so some of these site providers can be talking to each other. And even without talking to each other, they can even observe each other. Because we know that you're this other committees offering this price, you say, I'll also maintain my price. Because you also don't want to lose. Then you also maintain your price, and each and every one of them will maintain their price. Unless one of them maybe for one reason or other decided maybe let me lower my price for one reason or other, which wouldn't hardly happen. Yeah, so I think in short, what I'm trying to say is that you should not just sit and say that you allow the competition to dictate the price, but rather, since your mandate is to protect consumers, you should come up with initiative that will enable you to study the prices and ensure that what price is being given to the customers are justifiable. And if they are not justifiable, then you should take legal actions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think good question. I'm sorry for what I don't know whether you've been around for all the time I spoke about this. I've answered exactly what you've said about the question during my deliberation. Firstly, I said I do not know. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I said I do not know of any study because throughout my research I've not seen. There could be one. Two, my answer is exactly your question now. What I said was, for competition, we need to know factors driving these prices. That is why we are on the verge of commissioning a study to understand factors driving these prices. Because these prices could be driven by cost, but it could also be driven by anti-competitive behavior. Anti-competitive behavior could be just as you've said, and I think I said this here earlier on, where they come together to agree on a price. If we find out that, I'll be very happy because you know why? The commission will be richer. As per the Competition Act, if enterprises are found to be colluding to fix prices, we can charge them 10% of their turnover. You understand? Not profit. 10% of their turnover for 3 years of the crime being committed. So we are not saying we just allow the market to go on its own. That is irresponsibility. But as a competition authority, what we do is we look at the cost. If the cost is artificially, the price you are paying for is artificially induced, then there are laws within the Competition Act that we can use to correct it. This is what I've said earlier on. And for this study, obviously, I've said that the study is one thing we want to commission. But to say that we control prices, what we're saying is calling for controlled prices is answering only one question. That is, the current price we are paying is unfair and is as a result of greed by the private or by the service provider. I cannot answer that question for now unless we conduct the study or we conduct the investigation. If the conduct is artificially induced, we use our laws. We have enough provisions in the laws to take care of that. But if it is cost-driven, in fact, Sidu said we advise government. But when we do the cost analysis or we study a sector, if we feel that the cost is as a result of government action, we advise as such. Let me give you one example. The cement market. We've seen cement prices going up and down. For last year, the cement prices have been low for a very long time. This year, even though it went up, it has started going down. When we conducted our assessment in 2016, we did in 2018 and 2019, we found out that the cost of the increment was as a result of government policy, not private greed, because it is government that passed a policy to say imported cement from Senegal, for imported bag cement should not be allowed in this country. And you allow only 3 players, that is Gassem, Salam, and which is Tiger, to operate in the market. When they cannot supply the whole market, they don't have the facility to supply my community in Esau. What do you expect? And there is transportation cost from Combo going to Esau. And we all know how the ferry is. If there is a ferry breakdown, they will not have cement. When we advise, we went after government to say stop it. In 2018, almost end of 2018, when we had the policy coming back, we advised to say, we heard you are about to pass this policy, but please take note, if you pass the policy, by then I think the price of cement was 235, we told them, if you pass the policy, the price of cement will be less than 300 in this country. They passed under 1-2 months, the price reached at 300, and they called us to say, yes, we read your advice and you said it would reach this. What do we do? I said, simple. I said, don't do, you do, undo. So that intervention has been there for the commission. That is why we need to understand the actual cost. During the COVID, we saw government saying we've waived taxes. Do you understand? When we did our assessment, we realized that the price we are paying is the actual price we should pay for. I think for some of you who are watching TV, saw me on TV, even though it was very unpopular, but I told people the private sector is right. The price you are paying for is the actual price you are paying for. So the advice is, government, we are charging them this much tax. Let's reduce it for the sake of COVID. We allow the consumers to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Babukar. Let's give chance to the students to ask.
I have less than 5 minutes. Sorry.
Good afternoon to you all. My question goes to you, Mr. Bensouda. As an ISP provider in the country, what are the elements that constitute universal and meaningful internet access?
It's simple. Your ability to use it to maintain your lifestyle, right? That's the ultimate answer, right? By that, what I mean is that you need internet for multiple things. You need it to entertain, you need it to work, you need it to play, you need it to learn, right? And can we provide you an internet connectivity that allows you to be able to do that, right? If you're able to do that, then problem solved. And I think that's ultimately, at least for INET, that has been our focus and our mission, is can we provide you internet that allows you to maintain your lifestyle and to live the life that you want to live.
Thank you very much, CD, for that question. Please, let's put our hands together for our wonderful panelists, please. Sidi, thank you very much for coming, and Babukar, thank you very much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, we can now have our lunch break, and after the lunch break, we are coming back in here to start working on the communique. Thank you very much.